Fundamentals of Mixing, Creative Adjustments, Part 2. Picking up from where we left off, we were just focusing on kick drum, drums and percussion. I'm going to take a step back here and just have a listen here just real quick. So we were doing a bunch of work on the kick, in particular, adding a sub. Just a little bit of a focus. I think this might be a job. I had set something up here, which was with the surf EQ to kind of follow some of this stuff, and who knows where this is in here. Right now, all this stuff is off. Let me just see here. This is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go back and open up a fresh instantiation, except I can't remember the name of the company that was involved with that. Sound Radix, there it is. Okay. Call up a fresh module here, and then what I'm going to just do is just create a little bit of a focused low-end drive, get this sucker to serve. So it's tracking the pitch. What's that on the top? Okay, so maybe just a graphic. Try to keep that focus so that groove kind of maintains there. I want to see if I can avoid using a parallel, keyed kick bass type of thing, because it's so syncopated. I'm not sure it's the right approach for this. Whereas the kick is just 4 on the floor. backing down the output level. So what that does is it basically brings down the overall bass frequencies by half a dB, and then just gives me a little bit of a bump that kind of moves and follows the frequency of the bass. And that seems to give it like a nice focus. I really like the surf EQ for that. That was a plugin of the week from last week or a couple weeks ago. What I wanted to get to was the horns. And so that's going to come here from the key sub. And this was something else that I didn't feel like I had quite tuned in. And this was, in particular, let's see, string, brass. What is this? This is Rhodes, string, synth lead, horns. Here we go, horns. This may be a real simple, quick one, but we'll just kind of see here, because I had already done this with the strings. So let me just kind of move forward here. And I think it's going to want to do a similar type of thing with the MV2. So all this is just a top-bottom compression to focus that room sound. Just to bring out a little more depth in that. And I may need to, since I have the parallel in there, I may need to bring up the overall levels of that a bit. There's something. Oh, there's a double in there. Okay, so this is also, they are cross-feeding into each other. Ah, okay. All right, so I got to double check on my sends here. So what happened is that I have to go back here. So I'm going to open up the feed to the string. What I have is the string reverb and the horn reverb. So there's a string brass early reflections, and then there is the string reverb. Okay, all right, so let me just kind of refocus this for a second. Let me just kind of see what was going on. Okay, so this was for that, and they were feeding into both. Okay, so this was on the early reflections that I'm doing this. Again, I guess I should kind of probably check here. That was bypassed. And then I had this on the reverb. So let me just keep sending to see what's going on here. So what I'm going to try here is a comparison with a shorter reverb time but with some pre-delay. So let's see which gives more depth. This is where we were. All right, so there's an interesting thing here, because usually when you bring in some pre-delay, what ends up happening is you have a separation. So the dry signal comes a little bit more forward, but the depth goes backward. Whereas when there's no pre-delay, we were syncing them back. But I'm curious to hear how this sounds in the context of the mix. So I like the pre-delay version. So it allows me to get a little bit more focus on the horns and the strings, which I feel like I wasn't getting before. So it makes them cut a little more clearly or cleanly through the mix. I know some of these things you're probably listening in I don't know if you hear the differences. I'm trying to describe what I'm hearing as much as possible. And in the context of the mix, there's a lot of subtle adjustments. And the reason why you don't generally see me do radical adjustments is that it just like completely will upset the rest of the mix. You know, you could just change, things kind of all over the place. It can really, create some problems. And so with some of these things, I'm constantly trying to get a little bit of an edge, a little bit more focus, a little bit more balance into some of the individual things that are going on. And so let's just see here from this. I'm going to take it back from the top here. Let's get a little bit of perspective, and then we'll maybe tweak in some lead vocal verb. going to bring this overall parallel level down. Okay, so I don't know. I may have some concerns with the low end still being a bit mucked up or something like that. So if you're noticing that on speakers, that's probably not just you. You know what? I think I'm going to do a separate video here just for some of the for the lead vocal for the next one, for the next lesson. But I think that'll wrap it up for this one here. So a shorter video, but that was kind of the primary thing I wanted to clean up in the keys. And I think I'm more or less pretty good with where the guitars stand and with all of that. I think pushing it a little bit too far here, running a series of lessons for almost a couple hours here in a row. I think I'm afraid I don't want to burn out here too much on this. So I think I'll call it here on this, and we'll just say that's our creative adjustments part 2, and then we'll pick it up from there with part 3 in the next class.